All right. Hi. Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, April 21st, 2022. My name is Ashley, and I'm here with attorney Kim Christian. And this presentation is how do I know if I need a revocable or irrevocable trust? Thank you all for joining us. Let's hit a few housekeeping items. Your mics are muted. Submit questions in the Q&A box. We've saved time at the end to address as many questions as we can. We should be together for about a half hour today. We are recording this and we will email you a link to the video. Let us know how we did on the survey, please. And if you need to message me about anything, you may do so in the chat box. All right. On to bigger and better things. Let's introduce our speaker, Kim Christian. Kim is a dedicated partner at Russo Law Group. She's been with the firm for over 15 years, helping clients with elder law, special needs, and estate and trust planning. Kim's a member of several bar and board associations. She was also recognized as a Super Lawyer Rising Star. Kim, we are so glad to have you here today with us. Why don't you take over?
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm actually really excited about doing this presentation because this is one of the most common questions I get from my clients. You know, what are the differences between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust? When do I need one? How do I need one? So I have this nice flow chart here that walks us through what we're going to talk about. Do I need a trust? And trust, they can be revocable or irrevocable. And who should be my trustee? And do trusts protect my assets? And will it affect my taxes? Right? So all of these things we're going to discuss today. And hopefully, you know, if you don't have a trust and you feel that you might need one, it's going to incentivize you to go out and do your planning. And if you have one, you're going to get a checkup and you're going to make sure that it's what you think it should be doing. Okay, let's get started. So, do I need a trust? Well, the first place to start with understanding whether you need a trust is what is your objective, right? And you may have several objectives, so it could be a hybrid of things, but really you're going to ask yourselves a couple of questions. Do I want to do something called avoid probate? So way in the future when I'm not here anymore and my trustee is going to administer my estate, do I want to have court involvement or do I want to skip it and have a private document and avoid something called probate? Do I want to protect my assets, right? So a lot of people want to protect their assets in the event they require long-term care in the future. So that's another objective that is very common. Do I have a loved one that I want to protect? Is somebody who's going to inherit on a means-tested program because they have special needs? Or is somebody a spendthrift, or somebody may have a marital issue? All of these different things can come into play, and you may want to set up a trust in a situation like that. And of course, who doesn't want to save taxes? So you want to keep an eye on estate tax planning and what the thresholds are. So all of these things we're going to touch upon today. We only have a half an hour today, but I'm going to drill down on the basics so we can all get a sense. So revocable or irrevocable, right? To be or not to be is the question. So I did a chart so we can say if my objective, and you look to the left side, is to avoid probate, then the likely solution or the likely trust you'd be using is a revocable trust. But irrevocable trust also avoid probate. So typically in the avoid probate and revocable trust, that's if that's the only thing you're looking to do, right? If you want to protect assets from a nursing home and Medicaid, or you might need home care and you don't want to have to spend your assets down on care, you're going to be in the irrevocable trust arena. If you're looking to reduce estate taxes, you're in the irrevocable trust arena. If you want to ensure assets pass to the family members that you desire, At that point, you can use a revocable trust, and in some instances, you can also use an irrevocable trust. So let's talk about revocable, revocable. It really has to, the way you want to say it is up to you, but we're talking about revocable trusts and how do they work. So think about the word, and this is how I remember it. Think about the word revocable. If I have the right to revoke something, that means that I have full control over it, right? I can revoke the trust and amend the trust at any time. I can receive all the income and principal and assets from it. I can control the trust. I can even be the trustee. It's like having it in your own name, but it's held in trust form for asset management and to avoid probate and for various other reasons that we're going to talk about. But what's important to know when we're having this discussion is that revocable trust, you're in full control over. You can be you can be the trustee. You can change the terms of it. You can revoke it. You can amend it. And you report any interest that's generated from this trust or any income that's generated from this trust on your personal income taxes. It's tantamount to having it in your full control. So when would I use one, right? So we understand the mechanics of it. We understand that we have full control over it, but what are some common situations where I would want to use a revocable trust? Well, if I'm owning property in multiple states, then I surely don't want to have to go to each court in that state at the end when I'm no longer here and have my trustee or my executor going to each court in each different state. So if I have property in multiple states, I want to put them all in my revocable trust. So it's a very simple administration when I'm no longer here. Also, if you want family to have quick access to your assets, right? You hear all these stories that probate takes a long time, right? And you say, well, how can I make sure that doesn't happen to my family? Well, then one of your objectives would be to avoid probate so that they can access assets immediately. Or you have a family member who will likely challenge your estate plan. So many of my clients do a revocable trust when they're leaving their estate in unequal shares. For example, when they're disinheriting someone and they're afraid they're going to contest their estate, they will try to avoid probate, and they'll do so by doing a revocable trust. So the next question is if that's revocable and you're telling me that I have full control over it, when would I do an irrevocable trust? In this example, we're going to call it the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, right? And many of my clients say, well, I want to restructure my assets so that if one day I require long-term care, whether it be in a nursing home or whether it be at home, then I want Medicaid to cover it, or at least help me cover it. And I don't want to lose my assets that I worked so hard for. And I want to make sure I can stay in my home and not have to worry about having to sell it or put a lien on it. So I would do a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. But the key here is control. And that's why you would do an irrevocable trust, right? You don't want to have too much control over it, because if you have too much control over it, like the revocable trust, then Medicaid would say, hey, it's really yours and you've got to spend it down. So that's why in this instance, you're going to use what's called an irrevocable trust. And an irrevocable trust can protect your home. It can protect other real estate. So just like the revocable trust, you can have properties from other states in it. It can also protect some of your liquid assets, depending on the composition of them. So it's a really wonderful vehicle to do what's called asset protection planning, also known as long-term care planning. So if you think that you're concerned that one day you might need to access care at home, or you might need to access care in the nursing home, then as soon as possible, you want to be thinking about setting up a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. Because as many of us know, there's some eligibility rules, including what's called look back periods. And we want to make sure we get those look back periods marching on. So if we ever do need the long-term care, the assets are protected. So a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust, also known as the irrevocable trust, can be flexible and does have a lot of possible qualities, good qualities about them that a person would want. So you can draft the trust so that you're allowed to keep your income, and you can report your income on your own personal income tax returns. So even your income tax returns will be unaffected if you set up the proper irrevocable trust with the proper terms in it, right? So in our law firm, we just make sure whenever you're doing asset protection planning, whether it be a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust, we are also contemplating making sure that we minimize or reduce any sort of taxes and you remain unaffected in a positive way. It can protect assets for you and your heirs. It can minimize taxes on the sale of residence. As I said earlier, we're always making sure we keep those tax exemptions intact. It provides for flexibility. It avoids probate, and I mentioned that before, right? Whether it be a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust, you can avoid probate by doing a trust. And it protects assets from Medicaid and the nursing home. So the nice part about the asset protection trust or the irrevocable trust is that they protect assets in the event you require long-term care in the future. And we know where we live, the cost of care is so high. So you want to be getting in, you want to be doing your planning as soon as possible, because you don't want to be in a situation where you're looking, for example, at $15,000 a month private pay in a nursing home. So these kinds of trusts protect assets for long-term care purposes, and they also avoid probate, which means immediate access for your family. And of course, in our law firm, we're always drafting with our eye on taxes to make sure that you get the most favorable treatment possible. Then we have something called safe trusts, and many of my clients really appreciate why you would do a safe trust. A safe trust allows you to protect assets and income for your children and your grandchildren, or for any other loved one that you wish to leave things to. How many of us have said, look, I love my children, I trust my children, but I know that there's third-party influences out there, right? They could have creditor issues, there could be a lawsuit, there could be a bad marriage, there can be all kinds of things that we want to protect our children from. So many of our clients do what we call safe trust. We're keeping things safe for people, right? And it's not meant to punish a child, it's meant to protect a child. And it says, I'm not going to leave my assets, all of them, outright to the child. I'm going to leave it in a safe trust to them, for them, so that they can access it for their quality of life, but don't have to worry about what I call those third-party influences like lawsuits and creditors and things of that nature. You can also use the safe trust as an estate tax planning vehicle, right? You can use it to transfer assets to lower your estate in the event you need to. It also works as a parent's prenuptial agreement, right? I always get a lot of smiles about that. If they can't have their child do a prenup, well, they're gonna, in a sense, do it for them and make sure that those assets remain separate property. And of course, like the other trusts, these trusts avoid probate as well. So when would I do a safe trust? I do a safe trust when I'm thinking that I want to protect a loved one from potential issues in the future, or if I know that they already have some creditor issues or things like that, I'm looking to do a trust that protects them. So far we've talked about revocable trust, we've talked about irrevocable trust for Medicaid asset protection purposes, and we've talked about safe trust to protect loved ones if we're leaving them in an inheritance and we want to make sure it's given to them in the safest manner possible. Then, of course, we have trusts to save estate taxes. So we don't just do irrevocable trust for Medicaid asset protection planning. We also do it for estate tax planning. And we know that the estate tax laws allow us to pass assets to our heirs within a certain amount, right? So, for example, there's a federal limit that you can pass assets, and there's a New York limit that you can pass assets. And you just want to make sure that, hey, I'm addressing this. If my estate is too high, or I think it might be, I want to come in, I want to meet with Kim, I want to meet with her partners. I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can so that I pass the most to my heirs to preserve my legacy and to make sure I'm taking advantage of all estate tax laws. So we do an irrevocable trust in situations like this. We all know we can do annual gifting, $16,000 to as many individuals or entities as we want. So sometimes we do them to a trust. We can do what's called GRATs, Grantor Retained Annuity Trust. We can do QPERS, Qualified Personal Residence Trust. And we can even do planning documents that have what's called Unified Credit and Marital Trust. And that is a fancy way of saying we're going to make sure we take advantage of all the estate tax exemptions that are out there so we can pass as much to loved ones as we wish. All right, so I can already see that we have some questions and answers up in the queue. So I'm going to make sure I leave some time for that. But before I do so, I just want to recap on what I went over. So the first thing was the revocable trust. When do I do a revocable trust? I do a revocable trust when I'm not particularly interested in long-term care planning. Perhaps I have a long-term care insurance policy, so I don't think I need to do that Medicaid asset protection trust, but I do have some what I call indicators, reasons I'd want to do a revocable trust. I have properties in multiple states, right? Or I'm disinheriting somebody or leaving unequal values to people, and I'm concerned that they might contest their estate. Or I want to make sure that I have really a good flow of asset management. And when I pass away, nobody is waiting to access my assets because I know there's things to be done and bills to be paid. And I want less administration and more ease. So that's when I would do a revocable trust if I'm looking for those kinds of things. And I'm not necessarily looking for that asset protection trust in the irrevocable trust. The next thing we talked about was the irrevocable Medicaid asset protection trust. When would I do that? Well, I'd certainly do that as soon as possible. I mean, I would make an appointment if I was concerned about needing long-term care, right? Whether it be in a nursing home, they're running around $15,000 a month, whether it be at home, right? And we know care at home can add up. If I need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, privately paying at $30 an hour, I'm well over $10,000 a month. So I want to be restructuring things to make sure that I can access the Medicaid system to cover me if I ever required that long-term care. And then I wouldn't have to worry about living in my home, or I wouldn't have to worry about spending down my assets. I will have proactively created a plan. The next thing we talked about, and this is a fan favorite, we talked about safe trust, right? We just want to make sure that our loved ones are protected. If I have a child with special needs, I want to make sure I pass assets to them in the most protective way, right? I don't want to disrupt any means tested benefits. If I am concerned about a marital issue, or I am concerned about a creditor issue, or I'm concerned about my child in general who maybe is not as responsible with money as I'd like them to be, then I'm just going to make sure that I set up a trust that's going to help them, right? And then last but not least, we have the estate tax planning trust. And there's a multitude of trusts that you can set up for estate tax planning. But when you're doing so, the key is, and this is with all the trusts I talked about, control. So the likelihood is when you're setting up trust for estate tax planning, you're probably in the irrevocable zone because you're looking to get assets out of your estate and lower the estate tax threshold. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I think I'm going to take some time. I'm going to answer a couple of questions and then we'll circle back. And as a matter of fact, before I do that, Ash, I'm just going to ask you to go back to that last slide because I forgot to say, what should you be doing now? So the last slide says, what do I do now, right? And isn't that always the question? You got to create a plan. I can't tell you enough. You know, this is not something that people love to confront. I understand you're confronting mortality, you're confronting questions about your family, you're confronting all kinds of things, right? You're gonna sit with a lawyer, but it's so important, right? Get it done, put it behind you, have what I call peace of mind. So you want to create a plan. You want to make sure your legal documents are comprehensive and up to date. So if you already have legal documents, don't just say to yourself, hey, I've got them already, I'm good. No, treat it like the doctor. Come in for a checkup. Have us review what you already have. Make sure it says what you think it says. For example, I've had people come in and say, Kim, I'm well past the Medicaid look back period. I'm good. Here's my trust. And then I look at the trust and I say, my goodness, this is a revocable trust. You actually never got the clock ticking. So you just want to make sure that you come in, right, and you have us review the documents, a checkup, and we'll tell you, yeah, you're good to go, or hey, we can tweak this or amend it to make sure it addresses your needs. And then of course, get your plan implemented, right? There's nothing like what I call positive momentum. Once you start it, you're going to get it done, you're going to have peace of mind, and you're going to move forward confidently knowing your estate plan is what you want. All right, thanks Ashley for going back to that slide. Let's take some questions. All right, the first question from William. Thank you, William. If you put your house in an irrevocable trust, does that preclude the ability to access a home equity line of credit and a reverse mortgage? Well, the answer to your question is if you put it in one of our trusts, then it would not preclude you. You could. I can't speak for every irrevocable trust out there. Different attorneys draft irrevocable trusts in different ways, but there is a way of doing it. You have to understand when you put something in an irrevocable trust, you are giving up some control. So it is more difficult to do things like this. And sometimes the rates that you get won't be as good. So if you think you're going to be doing that, then my suggestion is you do it before you do any sort of planning. You get that in place and we'll discuss it from there. But is it a possibility? Yes, it is. Roberta, thank you. How does one figure out which type is best for him or her? So hopefully some of this information that I spoke about helps deciphering what it is. But really, Roberta, what it comes down to, and I absolutely love this question, is what you want. And when you go see your estate planning attorney, the attorney should be asking you questions about what you want, what your objectives are, and you should be telling them everything. You should be saying, I have a piece of property in this state, and I have a piece of property in this state, and I have this person who, you know, I want to leave things to. And oh, by the way, I am worried about estate, you know, asset protection planning. And if you do it like that, then the attorney will be able to best decipher what you need. There is no cookie cutter plan for anyone. It has to do with what you tell the attorney, and they will create a beautiful tailored plan for you and let you know what kind of trust you would need. Typically, or generally is a better word for it, if you're doing asset protection planning, you're in the irrevocable zone. If you're just doing trust administration and you're not worried about healthcare and reducing taxes, you're in the revocable. But again, it's specific to your personal situation. I got another one from Tom. Is an irrevocable trust best to use for a single senior person with charity in mind for my remainder of assets? I love that question too. Charitable intentions are wonderful. You know, sometimes we talk about leaving them to individuals, but a lot of times it's a charity we have in mind. And isn't that wonderful? So, Tom, the answer to your question depends on why we're doing things, right? If we're leaving things to charity because we're doing estate tax planning, right? And we might be doing something called a charitable trust, we may be in the irrevocable trust arena. If we're doing things because we just want things to go smoothly and we want to leave things to a charity and we're not in the estate tax planning arena, a revocable trust would work. So just like the question before, it's fact specific. You want to come in, you want to give me the most information that you have, and then I am able to tailor what kind of trust makes sense for you. I've got another one from Nancy. Once the grantor dies, and for purposes of this webinar, the grantor is the person who sets it up. Once the grantor dies, can I keep the revocable and irrevocable trust up for 12 months to pay all expenses before distributing to the beneficiaries? Well, the first thing I always say here is that this is just a general webinar. So whatever I say here, you know, naturally is not legal advice. And what I tell everyone is have your trust reviewed, because they are fact specific and they are drafted in certain ways that say, okay, it has to be distributed by this time or not distributed by that time. In general, you do have time to distribute assets, but you always want to be reviewing the document very carefully to determine those kinds of things. All right, Claire, how does getting money out of a revocable trust work? Great question, Claire. So as I mentioned earlier, a revocable trust means you have unfettered access to the assets, particularly if you name yourself as the trustee. So for example, if I have a revocable trust and I'm the trustee, then I can have the trust drafted to say that I can remove the money any way I want. I can write a check, I can transfer the assets online, I can do whatever I need to do because the trust is revocable. All right. Okay, I'll take one more question because I see we've got about a minute left. I'm so excited. Thank you for all these questions. Is an irrevocable trust revocable? Since the income tax is really higher from trust, what strategies hedge it? Awesome question. Okay, so you know, I'm getting very technical here, but there is a statute in the Estates, Powers, and Trust Law that allow us to revoke an irrevocable trust, but there are mechanics to it, and it has to be done very carefully, and it has to be done according to the regulations. Also, in some of our irrevocable trusts, we address your concern regarding income taxes, and though the trust can be irrevocable, we maintain it to be what's called a grantor trust. And once I do that, I am able to report it using my own personal income tax rate while I'm alive and not the higher trust tax rate. So your question actually falls right under what I was talking about regarding the other questions. It is fact specific. You come in, you speak to us, and you tell us what you're looking for. I'm worried about this. I'm concerned about that. These are my goals. And then we tailor it to your needs. And of course, as attorneys in our office, we're going to ask you the right questions too. And if we feel that there's just additional things we need to talk about, of course, we'll add that all in. So by the time you're done, you have the most comprehensive plan, you have peace of mind, and you can be happy about it. So I think, you know, it's 1:30. I had a half an hour slot. I appreciate so much everyone who has joined us. I know I got to several questions, and I am going to let Ashley take it away. I've done a lot of talking, so I'm sure you're looking forward to hearing another voice.
Let me just jump in and we'll wrap it up, Kim. Thank you so much. As you can see with Kim, Russo Law Group is dedicated to providing our clients with peace of mind. the most comprehensive estate plans, and also helping those in times of crisis. We do truly care about our clients. We've served the community for 35 years, assisting over 17, 18,000 families. So let our experience be your protection. We have multiple office locations, and we offer home visits and, of course, virtual meetings. Here is some services that we provide and how it can be of assistance to you and your family. I would urge anyone who has questions, please give us a call. We're happy to talk with you more individually after the seminar. We appreciate all of you for joining us. Please leave us your feedback in the webinar survey that will appear on your screen momentarily. Kim, excellent presentation. You
Thank
knocked
you,
it out.
and thank you all for joining. If you think any of these things apply to you, I encourage you to call as soon as possible, because once you get it in place, you will have that peace of mind and you will know that all of your objectives have been addressed. And like I said, I call it positive momentum. So if you're looking to avoid probate, protect a loved one, minimize estate taxes, preserve your assets in the event you need long-term care, right? All of these things, just make sure you do it as soon as possible. We're happy to help. Give us a call.
Best advice. Kim, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
All
for
right.
joining us. And
Enjoy the beautiful day. I hear it's supposed to be warmer tomorrow. So just, enjoy every moment. And thanks for joining me today. All right. Take care, everyone.
bye.
Bye.